my waiting for live dance.
There you go. You have a dance for everything.
Are we live yet? Hey everybody, I'm Liz Merrick and this is the Sugar Geek Show. Today I am super excited because I'm going to be demoing something that is very near and dear to my heart. It is the chocolate sugar skull mold. This is something that I use for all of my bust cakes, like this lovely Egyptian goddess right here. This is one of the latest tutorials from the Sugar Geek Show. So she's actually cake inside and she has a chocolate skull. And so do I, which is how I thought of this. And a lot of people, like, even though I put a handout when I send out the chocolate skull, when you order it from sugargeekshop.com, people still want to see, like, how do you actually use it. So I'm going to demo the whole spiel. I'm going to show you exactly how I put together the chocolate skull, all the steps I take before I carve the cake, and then I'm going to carve cake into a bust. And just so you know, a bust just means a body from here to here. It doesn't mean bust. Okay, so Michelle is here with me so she can answer any of the questions you might have. Just type them out. I'll try and, explain as much stuff as I can, but I always leave stuff out that I think people don't even need to know. So just feel free to ask questions as we go. And yeah, I'm ready to get started. Woohoo! Okie dokie. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually pour the skull mold. And I have this extremely expensive, super fancy skull mold holder, also known as a pencil box from the dollar store. And I just use this to actually hold the skull mold. And I actually just happen to have this. I use this for my cake classes to put all their tools in, and it just holds it perfectly. So, yeah, so buy yourself a dollar skull mold holder. And I have melted down way more than chocolate than I need, but you need 4 pounds of chocolate for the actual skull mold. I keep looking at Michelle like I'm teaching her. I'm like, are you paying attention? So you definitely want to use candy melts, or these are actually Guittard Vanilla Appeals, which is like a high quality candy melt. But what it means is that you don't have to temper your chocolate. And most people, including myself, who even knows how to temper chocolate, ain't got no time to temper chocolate. Like, it's a pain in the butt. So if you put just melted down chocolate chips or something into this mold, it will stick like crazy. So you definitely want to use fake cheap chocolate because, first of all, it's highly doubtful anybody's actually going to eat this. So save yourself some money by using the cheap stuff as well.
And to answer the question, yes, we do have the chocolate skull molds in stock right now.
Yes, we do. We just relisted them, so they're ready to go. You can buy just the mold by itself, or you can buy it as a set with the eye molds and the transfer sheets if you want to, like, actually make the full face and everything. But some people want to do the eyes, like, out of fondant and hand paint them, and that's totally okay, too. All right, so first thing I do is I pour some chocolate into said molds, and I don't fill the backside up all the way. And I pour all the way onto this side. See how thick that is?
I have one question.
Sure.
It says, I live in a very humid country. Which chocolate is best to use in order for the skull to keep its shape?
This is just chocolate, so it doesn't matter how humid your environment is. It's going to be solid at room temperature. You might be thinking of modeling chocolate, which is, can get softer in warm areas, and I would recommend using Hot Hands modeling chocolate. Okie dokie. So normally what I would do now is I would put this in the freezer for like 5 minutes to let this kind of get like a surface set to it. And then I would pour a little bit more chocolate. So let's pretend like this is set for like 5 minutes, right? So then I'm going to pour more chocolate, and this is going to be glue to glue the two halves together, right? But it's not set. So what's going to happen is it's going to get a little bit messy, and it's fine. It doesn't, chocolate is, anything that spills, you can just put back into the bowl, right? But we're going to be real quick and see if we can. Michelle's looking at me like, like, oh my god, girl.
Crazy. That was awesome.
All right, so this actually snaps together and seals all the way around. So that's actually the best I probably have ever done. So now I'm going to place this into the freezer for like an hour or so. But by the magic of Facebook Live, I have one finished already. So let me go grab it. I'm pretty impressed with myself.
I am too, to be honest. I thought it was going to go all over the place.
So if you're a badass like me, you can literally just do that. So once it freezes, you can actually see that the chocolate will like shrink down and it pulls away from the outside of the mold, and we'll just, it should be, see, this is what happens when you do live. It should be so easy to pull out, except for that it didn't. That's what happened with the two pieces glued together. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I probably just waited a little bit too long. But we'll just do it live.
So now you know what you could do in case that happens to you.
There
So
you go.
actually she did that on purpose.
Right? I just wanted to teach you guys. So this is like really cold chocolate, so I'm going to work really fast here. And just squeeze that together and set that over here while we start working on the structure. So I suppose you could literally just freeze the two pieces like separately and pop them out of the mold and then do this if you wanted to. This is already set. Ooh, it's like crackling.
I know. It's like Rice Krispies.
So that's literally how you put together the skull mold, which I think most people understand and is not the issue. They get to this point and they're like, now what? Yeah. Like, how do I mount this for my structure? And there's a couple of different ways you can do it. If you are using threaded rod, you can drill a hole and just like put this right onto the threaded rod just like this. But I tend to use PVC pipe for using my bus cakes because it allows me to have more freedom as far as the size of the structure and stuff. So whether I'm doing like a full figure like the Princess Mononoke, or if I'm just doing like a small bus cake like this, I can work on the face ahead of time, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So the first thing I'm going to do is drill a hole into the chocolate.
What?
I know. Isn't that bizarre that you can drill chocolate? So I'm using one of these drill bits. I don't know what this is called. It's like a little flat paddle for drilling holes. And it says 1 inch on it, but it's actually ½ inch, if that makes sense. Which confused me a lot. I think it's like, maybe it's 1 inch. I don't know. I don't understand why it says 1 inch.
Because it should make a 1 inch hole.
I know, but this is a ½ inch PVC pipe.
Is it?
Yeah, so it doesn't make sense to me. But I don't know.
Whatever.
Just use the 1 inch drill bit, and that will make a hole that's big enough for the ½ inch PVC pipe. So, just in case you need to know anything about a screw gun, left side loosens the hole on the end. You hold right here. That makes the hole bigger. Put that in. I'm holding this little loosening part with my finger, clicking the right side, and just letting that tighten.
Oh.
Do you not know how to use a drill?
Girl, I did that manually.
Okay. Oh, you did?
Yes, I'm working on my biceps. Don't judge me.
Okay. No judgment. So, on the skull itself, we're going to drill a hole in the back half of this skull here. Because if you drill in the front, what usually happens is you run into it when you're sculpting. So you're like sculpting the neck, and then all of a sudden you hit pipe. So put it back a little bit further in the back portion of the skull. And depending on what angle you drill at will be the angle that the pipe is inserted at. So, oh my God, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with this?
It's like, I don't want to be hold.
Apparently I've over frozen this thing. It like doesn't want to stick together.
Apparently it's called a flapper bit, and it is used for drilling holes in wood.
A flapper bit, huh?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's not sticking like this. I have a feeling it's because it's just been frozen for a really long time. Because it's never done this before. I've been meaning to demo this for like a week.
Oh, and it's been in the freezer that long?
Ugh. Yeah.
Well,
Alright, so let's try and drill this without like losing the back portion of the head. Oh, so what I was saying on my Indian girl cake. I think she's over there. Her head is tilted to the side like this. So I drilled the hole at an angle, like, so I held the head at an angle like this and then drilled straight up. So the PVC pipe goes into the skull at an angle. Well, it goes into the skull straight up, but the head is tilted so that you can make the head, you know, at any angle or whatever. So we're just going to go straight up though. So I'm just going to push into the back of the skull and just do some minor surgery. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we don't need to go in very far. So we have like a little cavity. All right, so PVC cutters. These are my buddies here. PVC cutters, it cost $10 from the hardware store. And I use these to cut the PVC because A, I'm afraid of saws and I don't use them unless I absolutely have to. So I just would use these to cut however long. This length doesn't matter right now, because we're making this to go onto an external mount. So this is like a head sculpting platform that I made. It's just 2 pieces of wood with a Lazy Susan in the middle, so that I can mount my chocolate skull to this and work on it for weeks before I actually do the cake, because that takes a really long time. And you can just work on it whenever you want and then add it to the cake later, so that you don't have like cake sitting out for hours and hours, right? So I'm going to take some of my melted chocolate, put that into the hole, and then it's just going to bust out because that's my luck. Also, make sure you wash your PVC. You buy this from the hardware store, and it's like in a hardware store, so I'm sure they don't wash it or care if it's dusty. Then you just put that in there. I'm going to put some more chocolate. Fill it up. Doesn't have to be pretty. We're going to be covering everything, so like that. And that'll just take a couple of minutes to set.
Since it's frozen.
Since the chocolate is frozen. While we're waiting on that, let's start building our structure. That's easy, right? Mm-hmm. So, for the cake board. This board is from Cake Boards Aver. As far as I know, you cannot order just a cake board straight from them, from their website. They only deal bulk to other websites. So I'm pretty sure Global Sugar Art sells these, or you can find them on Amazon. Or you could just like put feet on your boards, you know, yourself. This is just like a time saver thing. And I use feet on all my boards. So, wow, look at that. Already got feet on them. It's also coated in this like food safe material, so you don't even have to cover your cake board. But I do anyways. So you just take that off. This is 10 inches. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch metal flange. You can get these at the hardware store, but it's cheaper to get them from Amazon in packs of 10. And then the board itself is like probably like 3/8 inch thick. And I use not these screws. These will be okay. As long as the head of the screw is smaller, or not smaller than the hole, then it should be okay. I like these ones that have like the bigger heads on them. Like this. So this is like a 5/8 inch or 1/2 inch. And my drill bit. You always want to use a wooden cake board when you're doing structure, because everything is going to be attached to this board. So especially if you have something that's like standing on one foot and is super gravity defying, if you do that onto a cake drum, it's just going to fall apart. Just pre-drilling a small little hole through that really tough outer exterior. It's hard for a screw to go through that. I can't believe you used to do this manually.
I know! I'm still mind blown about this. I was just going to say something. I was like, I'm still so impressed right now. And it's a shame because like half my family are contractors.
Yeah,
so.
that's pretty sad.
I converted a garage into a studio and I don't know this.
That's
what
crazy.
What is wrong with me?
I don't even know how I learned. Who knows? There we go. Nice and easy.
Where did you say you get the boards at?
These are from Cake Boards Avare, A-V-A-R-E, but you can look for them on Amazon or Global Sugar Art. And we're going to be carrying them soon, too.
Perfect.
As soon as we figure out how to store them, right, Michelle?
Yeah.
Space is a problem. But it's such a time saver. I love them.
Yes.
All right. Rock solid.
Beautiful.
So you see that goes a little bit through the board, and that's actually what I want. I want to be able to be gripping as much of that wood as possible, but obviously if there was no feet, that would be very damaging to the other side of your table. Mm-hmm. So just be aware if you don't have feet, but I would recommend you put feet on your boards. Always. So this is dry, I'm sure. I have just a one of my metal flanges mounted to the board, a male adapter, 1/2-inch PVC pipe. This is called a, what is this called? Coupler. It just is to attach 2 pieces of PVC pipe in a straight line. So I can put this here, like this, and then, I'm working on the face, a week goes by, and then I can take this off and move it to my cake.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So, over here, out of the way. So, male adapter.
What size of flange again?
1/2-inch. Everything's 1/2-inch. 1/2-inch flange, 1/2-inch male adapter, 1/2-inch PVC. Get that on there. And then PVC pipe. And I'm going to use my gal over here as sort of my reference, because otherwise it takes a long time to do all the measuring. If you are a member of SugarGeekShow.com, I have this bust cake tutorial in all of its 7 hours of in-depth learning glory. And one of the things that you get is this template right here. So this is going to help me know how long to cut things, right? So you might be like, oh, I'm just going to cut this like super tall or whatever. And then you put it in here and you're like, oh wow, that's way too tall, right? So I'm using this just as a guide of about how tall to cut. And I'm going to bring this up to about here, because I'm not putting in this cross section. We're going straight cake.
Say what?
I know. This is how I did the Spider-Man cake tutorial.
Nice.
So you're definitely not going to get as much flawless detail doing it this way as you would in this tutorial, where it's like the body is cake and the arms are like modeling chocolate and the upper body is rice cereal treats. It's less cake and it's just like more realistic. You can do more undercuts and get a lot of the anatomy better. But this is like a good basic thing. Like if you were just never sculpted a bust cake before and you're like, I want to sculpt Harley Quinn for my daughter who loves her, like this is how you would do it, okay? All right, so we have our basic structure here. Very fancy. And we're gonna cover this in aluminum foil tape.
And where can you get that?
Home Depot, the best cake store on the planet. So aluminum foil tape is literally just aluminum foil that has a non-toxic adhesive on the back, as long as you do not heat this up. So don't be putting this in the oven or nothing and melting it and then telling me that it's toxic, because I told you not to do that. Yeah, so it's just like a glue. And they use this for like your dryer. The pipe that comes from your dryer and vents out to the outside. This is like the tape they use to tape that so that it doesn't fall off your dryer, basically. Or on your like air conditioning or anything like that. So I just, even though the flange is metal, I don't know what kind of metal it is, you know? I don't know what it's coated in. So even though it's washed, I just don't want to leach anything into my cake. Ever. This roll costs about $5. Nice. And it's like 5 billion feet long. So that's the great thing about using materials that are not cake decorating materials, is they're really cheap.
And it's sharp, so be careful. Don't get too crazy.
It is. I have many a cut on my finger, like little tiny paper cuts. So just, it doesn't hurt or anything. I think that's the weird thing. You just suddenly realize you have all these cuts all over your hands, and you're just like, what happened to my hands? Don't go all the way up because we got to make room for our coupler. Made that mistake before. Okay. Everybody with me so far?
So far, so good.
So good, good. All right, I'm going to go grab my cake. Anybody have any questions so far?
Dan jumped on board, so he's helping out with questions too.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan. All right, I'm going to put on my gloves here.
So beautiful.
Yes. All right. Buttercream down first. Or you can use ganache. I'm using buttercream in between the layers because it looks better when you slice it. But really, ganache is the most stable for everything. So I measured this to calculate my my cake, right? So I have my life-size template right here, and then I just like calculated how much cake I was going to need for that. So I'm thinking that there's going to be about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of buttercream between each layer. So I want to make sure that it's wide enough, and I want to make sure that it's tall enough. But up here, right about the top of the bust, I don't need it to be quite so deep, like because the chest is not like super thick, as opposed to how thick it is from here to here, is here and here. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I didn't bake 3 sheet cakes because otherwise that just would have been a lot of wasted cake, right? So I'm going to go ahead and start stacking these.
As far as the buttercream question goes, we use Swiss meringue.
Yes. I always think that it's not going to be enough, and then I make them too big. So don't do that. This is a new chocolate cake recipe that we're going to have up on the website very soon. But basically it is a chocolate butter cake, which means that when you put it in the refrigerator, it gets very firm. And it's also made with AP flour, which is not what I usually use for my cakes, but a lot of people complain to me that my chocolate cake recipe is too delicate for them. And a lot of that just really comes to, I'm just used to it, you know, like I'm used to handling a really delicate cake, so it's not difficult for me. But if you are just starting out, you might want to start with a more robust cake recipe, and this one works really good. And it tastes good, as we can all attest to. Except for Michelle, who's in keto.
Yes.
I'm on keto too, but I gotta taste my cakes.
Yes.
And if you want to make a male cake, it's exact same process. And that's the Spider-Man cake. Except for the head is cake too, because back then I didn't have a chocolate skull. I just don't think it's necessary to make the head out of cake. Like, yeah. I could if I wanted to. I have many times, but it's just a waste. Like, this is going to be, what, like, a quarter sheet? That's like 50 servings, right?
Yeah.
So that's like 50 servings, or maybe 35 party servings. Are you really going to have a party with more than 35 people at it? If you are, you're extra. I don't know what that means. I hear the people say it. The young people.
Those young
kids today.
That looks so good. I love that.
Beautiful?
Yeah, it's a great chocolate cake recipe.
Look how it's very sturdy.
Yeah.
Let's push that down. It's heavy too.
Which is
Tell
great.
Michelle, I always forget like how heavy cake is. Because to be honest, I don't eat a lot of cake, and I usually make my sculpted cake tutorials out of rice cereal treats so that I can keep them. But our garage is overflowing with cakes and stuff, so I have to just be a little bit more picky about which ones I save. Like this gal has actual cake inside, so I'm like afraid to cut into it. I'm a little terrified. I should just throw it away and not cut it open.
Yes.
Because I don't want to know what's in there. But Avalon is getting older. She's 3.5 now, and she's like, "Hello, can I have that cake, please?" Yeah. So we've started doing more things out of cake. So my poor child, who has to look at me making cake all day, can actually eat it.
Gosh, that's such good cake.
It is. So I'm gonna use this as a template. Normally, you would cover this in like tape so that your hands don't get it all gunky.
But that would be extra.
Right? That would be extra work. All right, so about, let's say, this much. Where's my bowl? Don't be throwing away them scraps.
No.
This is donated to the family.
Yes, we use extra dark cocoa powder for the chocolate. It gives it a nice, good chocolate flavor. Somebody was saying it looks pretty dark.
It is. Let's see. I don't really know. I have a side template too that I didn't print out. So I'm going to say she's about 5 inches thick. That's the nice thing about templates. Well, hello, Dan.
Oh my goodness.
You are so ridiculous.
I'm gonna take a keto-sized piece, which should be nothing, but I just can't help myself.
You're so funny.
That was hilarious. I was like, oh my gosh, did something go wrong with the live? And he has a plate and fork in hand. I'm like, I know what you want.
All right, so I'm basically getting the rough width on both sides, right? So I'm cutting the upper body at like an angle to account for breasts.
Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop. And I'm just going to cut down. So we are going to have a very slight undercut, right, for boobage. You just have to be really careful about that, because if you make them too big, they're just going to fall off. And that's not good.
Oh my gosh.
All right. And
I can smell the cake from here, by the way.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh. Where's my ketones?
No, I almost feel like I need to come on that side. Can you film over my shoulder?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I need to calculate width of arms here. About here and here. Come down. Right. So these are arms. You ever read, like, see one of those drawing books that has people built and they're all like a bunch of squares and cubes?
Yeah.
It's like that.
Oh, and then you just
Soften, exactly.
That makes sense. Oh, I see what you're doing. It's all coming together now.
Yeah. This one I'm just rounding out. I'm not going straight back. I think some people forget too that your body is like rounded, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like your body is this rounded part. Your whole chest cavity is an egg shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people make the back really flat, and your back is not flat. It's round. Okay. And then let's see, boobs. I'm gonna say about right here because that's convenient. Just cutting in a little bit. And then I'm going to round out corners. Okay. And then I think I'm going to round out the arms a little bit. By round out, I'm literally just cutting the corners off.
Pretty simple.
Like I feel like people think they have to like do all this cutting to round something out, but really that work is done with the buttercream and the ganache. So that's all I had to do.
Nice.
That much. And then I'm just going to, the way that your boobs look, it's going to sound kind of strange, but I think people think that a breast is like a teardrop shape like this, going straight up, or they think it's a circle, right? Both of these things are not right. If you think of a boob as more of like a teardrop shape kind of going towards your armpit, that's what the muscle is doing, right? So if I cut two little teardrop shapes like that touch in the middle, I'm going to have to start moving to a smaller knife here in a second. And then I'm just going to scoop that at more of a gentle angle. Does that make sense?
For sure.
I'm just kind of scooping out all of this extra. Rounding out the boobies. You see how fast that happens? Things go very quickly in cake carving if you know what you're going for. The thing that takes a long time in cake carving is trying to figure it out. Figure out the measurements, what the, is it proportionate? Is it not proportionate? Why does it look weird? You know, that's the stuff that takes a long time. So I'm just smoothing that chest part up more. So it's going up into the neck. Rounding this out more. It's going out that way. And this part is not done yet. We're going to use some of our cake scraps to do some additional work once we get our skull on here. Anybody have any questions?
Nope.
We're just
amazed,
stunned
like
into
me.
silence.
I caught myself looking at the cake instead of the camera. I was like,
they're like, hello, I can't see.
Pretty much. I was like, oh, yeah, just kidding.
Sorry, sorry, we're here. I'm here.
I wonder we could get an extra dark cocoa. Is it all American thing? I think you buy it online, couldn't you?
Yeah, where did it, was the cocoa powder bucket? It's just a Dutch cocoa that's extra dark. You don't have to use extra dark cocoa powder.
But that's what we like.
That's what I had. I hear Dan moving.
Mm-hmm.
Must have heard me. All right, I know that kind of looks like nothing right now, so let's clean it up a little bit. All right, I'm gonna have to grab another bowl too. I'll just use this cake pan. We're gonna make a little bit of cake clay.
Is this it?
Perfect.
It is.
Okay.
Guittard chocolate noir.
And this is it, right? The 100% Dutch cocoa powder.
Mm-hmm. It has a really strong cocoa flavor.
Yeah.
Because of the Dutchness.
The Dutchness.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm just adding a little bit of ganache to our cake scraps, and that's just going to help it set up in the refrigerator nice and firm. I'm going to squish my hands. So this is I don't know how other people make it, but this is how I make cake pop dough as well. A little bit of cake scraps with buttercream and a tiny bit of chocolate. And then you just squish it until it becomes like a truffle kind of texture. I don't squish mine to the point that it's like every lump and bump is out, because I just think that's weird. Like, that's a weird texture. So I just kind of get mine to looks like that. Still slightly marbled. You remember doing this? Oh, yeah. It's like I'm getting flashbacks.
Yep, and my mouth is like super watering right now.
Sorry. All right, I'm going to put our skull on. I should take off my gloves. This is why it's great to work with gloves when you're doing stuff like this, because you have instantly clean hands. I have my template here, and I have a feeling that once I add my flange right here, that's basically going to be as tall as her head needs to be. So, yeah, it's even just a little bit taller. Oops. So I'm going to cut this off almost all the way to the very bottom. Like that. So imagine if we actually finished this whole cake. Like, sculpted the body, covered it in ganache, covered it in buttercream, and everything was totally finished, and you just pop the head on, the finished head on. Or you could finish the head, like if it was super elaborate and the body's going to be really simple, like Spider-Man. His body is like literally red fondant, you know?
Yeah.
So you can work on the head, make it look really good, then sculpt the cake, and, you know, get that all done in one day, and then pop the head on. Normally I would cover this part in with more aluminum foil too, but, well, I guess I was afraid it was going to stick to my fingers, but it's okay. So now you can take your cake pop dough, or cake clay, and build up the neck and trap part. This part of the neck. It's fairly thin.
Can I just say I'm pretty impressed with how fast this is going?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's like you're a professional or something.
It helps a lot understanding anatomy, to be honest. You know, like I know exactly what I'm going for. I do have to check my own measurements sometimes because I'm doing it quickly, I'm doing it live, you know, things can get kind of messed up visually, but
yeah,
overall I feel pretty good about it. I'm gonna just smooth this area.
Well, I wish I had some chocolate perky little
I know.
boobies like that.
Yeah, so they're a little bit low right here, so we're gonna build that up.
Gotcha.
So they're a little bit more proportionate. And that's nice to use the cake clay for too as well. To like, I mean, her boobs are pretty big though. That always happens. I always give my cakes boobs that I wish I had.
Right. The school we use our very own chocolate skull molds, which is on sale at the Sugar Geek shop.com.
What was that, Michelle?
Bleep, bleep, bleep. That's all.
SugarGeekShop.com.
There we go.
So then, the whole thing about the skull and why you should use it is I now have this big underlying structure ready to put modeling chocolate over, and I don't have to understand the scale. It's already in proportion to my cake. I know where the eyes go, I know where the lips go, I know how big the head is going to be, and it just saves you time. Because one of the things that bothers me is when I post cakes like this, the Egyptian skull, the Egyptian goddess, people are like, oh, that's so pretty and it's a work of art, but I could never, like, nobody would ever pay for that. I just made this whole thing right in front of you. Like, it doesn't take any more time to do than a wedding cake would. And you just have, you know, tools to help you make things go faster, just like anything else, you would have. So, you know, you might use a mold to make flowers, like a flower texture, or you might, you know, I'm just trying to think of like shortcuts you take with cakes. You wouldn't, you know, necessarily hand painted a pattern onto a birthday cake. You'd print it out on an edible image and wrap it, right? So you don't need to sculpt the head and the skull from scratch. Like, you can use something to make it go faster, especially if you don't quite understand anatomy yet, which most people don't. Okay, I could spend forever on the boobs because I obsess. See, the neck is a little bit skinny. You can also build the neck up with modeling chocolate if you want, which I usually do. But it's, I mean,
Why do you usually do the modeling chocolate?
it's just a little bit easier after the fact. Like, the neck has tendons and stuff in it, so if you just fill the whole neck with modeling chocolate, then once you're smoothing the final layer on, you're not pushing against cake.
That makes sense.
Does that? Yeah, so.
Good to know.
A lot of people make the neck too skinny. It's just very slightly narrower than your skull. Unless you're a football player. And it's very easy to forget the bottom of the neck that slopes up into the chin. If you're a dude, this is called Adam's apple. If you're a girl, it's just our neck fat.
Our second chin.
Second chin. There. So, just gonna finish. I'm gonna make a little bit more cake pop dough and finish the arms here. Move this stuff out of the way. And yes, this is what my countertop will look like by the end of this. In fact, it usually looks worse. As Michelle can attest to. Girl, what happened in this kitchen?
Done blew up.
Art happened. Just gonna round out that shoulder a little bit there.
And then I remember one of the biggest things that you taught me was get eye level with your cake so you could see it.
Yeah, come down and look, like for symmetry, to make sure that everything looks right. Because you just like get too close to it, you know? That looks pretty good.
There's where Evelyn gets it. It just reminded me of
Did
her.
she say pretty good?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
when
funny.
I was watching that video of the orange juice.
Oh, she did. She
Yeah,
said
she's like,
pretty good.
pretty good.
I'm just kind of pushing in right here. And I'm not really making the collarbone yet, but there is quite this hollow right here. And I think a lot of people accidentally make this portion of the woman too thick, and that makes her look really bulky and strong, right? Because if you were a dude and you were just jacked, this muscle gets really big and thick, and there really isn't a gap right there. But on a female, you know, usually their muscles are not quite that strong.
I love all the little details.
And then just make sure that from here to here, this is a curve. This is a curved surface. It's not, it's going into the armpits. I'm like giving you so much more information than you need. Because I believe you can do it. That's why.
Exactly.
All right. I'm going to call that good.
That looks great.
So then what I would do now is just cover this whole thing in some ganache as a crumb coat. And it also helps to keep it pretty stable. So I'm just going to cut into the back of the arm a little bit so that it's not quite so one-dimensional with the body. Does that make sense? Thank you, Michelle, for confirming for everybody.
I'm the voice.
You are. Sorry, I keep moving. Rotating. So if you look on the back, the difference between this side and this side, as far as how much dimension that has, just by cutting in a little bit. This is a totally natural angle.
Absolutely.
Good. And then I do the same thing to the front. I'll come around. Just gonna cut in. So you're cutting out of this triangle. And this is why you need a chilled cake and a dense cake, right? All right, we're gonna coat this in some ganache.
Ganache.
And I'm just gonna do just a thin coat to just kind of seal everything in. Depending on how warm it is, it's fairly warm in here. Surprisingly, with me and Michelle in here all hyped up on ketones. It's a little warm. But you could chill the cake first before you do this. But I'm just doing it. One thing that I just noticed, you see how the back of the neck goes straight down right here, and then I have a little bit of a hump? That's not right.
Unless you're me.
The back, your neck is actually at an angle. It doesn't go straight up and down. So the angle of the front of the neck, you see how it's kind of sloping up into the bottom of the chin? The back of the neck should mimic that. So if your neck was straight up and down, you'd have to push your head way far back and like lift your chin, but your neck is actually naturally a little bit forward like this.
Oh, yeah.
So that way it's connecting into your spine and you no longer have a hump. There we go. There you go, lady.
Do you want to twist it a little bit so we can see the other way?
This way?
There you go. Yeah.
You see it?
Thank you.
Cool. cover these arms and then show you what I use to smooth, and then we'll be done.
Say what?
Yeah, so if you have any other questions at all, now is the time to ask them. Otherwise, please check out sugargeekshow.com for more in-depth sculpted cake tutorials. You can order the skull, armature wire, and hopefully soon cake boards off of sugargeekshop.com. And Michelle will mail them to you.
Absolutely.
Because she's a badass.
With my little sealed kiss of approval.
One thing to note about ganache, when you first make ganache, it is liquid, right? And then after a few hours, it turns to what you call peanut butter consistency, which is great for smoothing onto your cake. And then after a few more hours, or in the fridge, it turns into something called solid chocolate. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your ganache. It's really just the temperature of the actual chocolate, right? So if you need it to be softer, nuke it for 15 seconds. If you need it to be firmer, toss it in the fridge for a little bit and then stir it until it's the consistency that you want it to be. This is 2-to-1
Yes.
ratio of dark chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using Innovative Sugar Works. What is this called? It's like a smoother, but I don't remember. Acetate smoother. And I like this for using on curved surfaces because you can basically follow the surface and smooth it out. And that way when you go to put your fondant or chocolate or whatever you're going to put over the top, you don't have any lumps.
And is this just a crumb coat or is this the final coat?
This is just the crumb coat.
So then you'll go over again with ganache.
With another layer of ganache that's really thin, but we're not going to show that part. Ganache is like so... I remember like not understanding ganache for the longest time. And then once I got that, it was like structured cakes just are so much easier with ganache. This definitely needs to be chilled.
And how long do you wait for the second coat?
Oh, maybe 20 minutes.
In the refrigerator?
Yep, 20 minutes in the fridge and then put the second coat on. And then I would use a paper towel, a damp paper towel, and just clean up the board and finish her. That's basically it.
Boom.
Yeah.
Any final words, Liz, that you would like to say?
Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to upload this tutorial to my YouTube channel, Sugar Geek Show, or youtube.com/SugarGeekShow if you need to rewatch it. It's also going to be up on our website as a free tutorial as well. And yeah, thanks you guys for watching on a Friday, which I know is a lot of cake decorators' busy days. So I appreciate there being so many people in here and commenting and showing support. And I just really hope that you like using the chocolate skull. It's definitely close to my heart. I think that it helps a lot of people bridge that gap between I want to make a sculpted cake but I don't understand anatomy or anything, right? So if you do use it, let me know. I'd love to share pictures. And other than that,
we got 2 more questions.
Sure.
One question we have is, how do you attach the fondant to the chocolate skull mold?
First of all, I use modeling chocolate to sculpt over a skull. And the reason for that is because then you can smooth the edges. And if you're interested in just like a straight up face sculpting tutorial, that we have just the face sculpting tutorial on sugargeekshow.com where I break down how you put the lips on, the cheeks, the nose, the eyes, eyelids, all that, and in a certain process so that you get a realistic looking face over the top of the skull. And then if you want to learn more about the whole body as a whole, you can watch the Egyptian goddess tutorial, which covers the face plus the body. And I really prefer using modeling chocolate over everything. It does make it more difficult to sculpt, or I mean to color, because chocolate is oil-based and most food coloring is water-based. So if you want to make it easy on yourself, sculpt the body out of cake, put your details on the face out of modeling chocolate, and then like panel the front of her with a thin piece of fondant so that you can color and dust and do all that kind of stuff. It just has to be super thin, and then you're gonna have like probably a seam on the shoulders, so just be aware of that. Cover it with hair, cover it with clothing, you know. But if you use modeling chocolate, that's pretty much the only way that you're going to get a seamless finish.
And you don't need to have any adhesive from the modeling chocolate to the chocolate. It'll just go right on.
Nope, chocolate sticks to chocolate, so it will go straight on. One thing I would mention is that ganache, when it comes out of the fridge, it can be pretty dry. So you might want to mist the ganache with a little bit of water when you start paneling it with fondant or modeling chocolate to get it to stick.
Perfect. And where can we get the ganache recipe that we used here today?
All of my recipes, including the cake, is on sugargeekshow.com, and all of the recipes are free. The buttercream too.
Alrighty, I think that's it for all of our questions.
Great. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.